our Law and Justice segment tonight, Robert Mueller has a radical Islam problem. The former FBI director was recently appointed as special counsel overseeing the investigation into Russian interference in our election. But during his time with the FBI, Mueller worked with radical Islamist groups to purge anti-terrorism training material that was supposedly offensive to Muslims. Does this call his judgment into question? Joining me now with the answer, President of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Tom, good to see you.
Good afternoon or good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Tom, this is a good find. You guys exposed this. We talked about this story before, but hadn't quite tied it to the fact that it was Robert Mueller who was in charge of the FBI at the time that this was done. But apparently he worked with these groups to purge anti-terrorism training material that Muslim groups found to be offensive, and I put that in quotes. What exactly did the FBI purge?
Well, they purged training materials back in the beginning, frankly, during the end of the Bush administration, beginning of the Obama administration, in a way to appease these radical Islamist groups, two of them who had been documented to have ties to terrorism, such as the Islamic Society of North America and the Council on American-Islamic Relations. They were named as the government by the United States government as unindicted co-conspirators in a terrorist financing case. Yet we showed that Mueller, who was 12 years FBI director, so he was, he'd been there forever, met with those organizations in 2012 to hear their demands. And then shortly later, the director assured the Muslim groups that he had ordered the removal and presentations of curricula on Islam from FBI offices nationwide.
Right, and this is so troubling.
Islamist material deemed offensive to the bad guys.
Right, I mean, this is so troubling. These two groups, the Islamic Society of North America and the Council on American-Islamic Relations, these two groups, like you said, they were unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terror financing case in our nation's history. How did they, I mean, maybe this is an elementary question, but how did they even get the ear of the FBI director?
Well, that's an open question. For many years, some of these groups were able to get the attention of the highest levels of government because during both the Bush administration and the Obama administration, they had this idea that they needed to work with Islamist groups, and they made no distinction between the jihadists and the bad guys and reformers within Islam. And so they had this idea that Islam is a religion of peace. You may remember President George W. Bush infamously said that. And so as a result, some of these groups who were really tools of the terrorist front organizations were able to get meetings in either the White House or in this case with the FBI director. And Mueller made a terrible mistake by allowing them anywhere near him and then appeasing them by, again, going through this purge. I mean, eventually, I think even Mueller's FBI said we're not going to meet with CARE anymore.
Right.
So it wasn't like they thought they were doing the right thing over a long period of time. They recognized it after a time, but the damage had been done, and and I have a feeling it's still a major issue within the government, and because the Obama way is still the way of the government until the Trump administration comes fully to power.
Right. And I mean, talk to me about what you just said. I mean, talk to me about the damage that this could cause, because sitting here, I don't care if we offend radical Islamist groups or groups that have sympathies to radical Islamic terrorism. I don't care about their feelings. We need to understand the motivations of these terrorists so that we can stop them from killing us. Well, what kind of damage does this cause to the training of our federal law enforcement or federal intelligence officers in actually stopping these threats against our country?
Well, it gets in the way of stopping those threats because if you're unwilling to look at the religious and ideological roots of the terrorists, you will miss the signals from potential terrorists who are using that language or consorting with those involved in that type of outlook, basically the terrorist outlook that justifies violence in the name of their religious and worldviews.
Right.
So if you don't know what to look for, if you're not allowed to use the word Islamist or you're not allowed to examine the Quran to see what the language is that justifies this, that is used to justify this behavior. Or in one case, you weren't even allowed to tie Al-Qaeda to terrorist attacks that you knew they were tied to. This is, as author Andy McCarthy has said, it's woeful blindness to the threat.
Yeah, it's totally inane. I mean, it's inane. Another example is, I mean, they purged material that they claimed inaccurately painted the Muslim Brotherhood as a terror organization, even though most other nations around the world consider the Muslim Brotherhood to be a terror organization, given the fact that they attack like terrorists do. But Tom, I guess the crux of this segment, and I want to get your answer on this, Robert Mueller, now he has almost unlimited political power in this investigation into Russia. Obviously, I mean, I don't need to tell you how important this investigation is, because it involves the president or the president's associates and a country, a nation, Russia, who is not a friendly nation to us. Is Robert Mueller qualified to lead this investigation?
Well, in the Washington way of doing things, he's eminently qualified. If you're looking for someone who's going to be innovative and be willing to cut against the political grain and do what is right, I don't know if he's the best pick. You know, I guess this whole discussion shows that he's a very politically sensitive FBI director or government official. Now, again, he's a government official. He was retired. So I don't understand why we think he's going to be anything different than James Comey was. I think he's probably a bit more sensible than James Comey was. And I hope he just gets in there and recognizes that the investigation isn't really an investigation. It was just a lot of noise to try to take out the president, and he shuts it down. And he does the real investigation into who did the classified leaks and such. But I don't know if he has the spine to do this,
Right.
given the political creature he has been in the past.
Right. And in my opinion, it certainly calls into question his judgment, because in the position that he's in, he needs to know, he needs to be thinking in the best interest of the American people. And it seems to me when he purged those anti-Islamic terrorism type materials from the FBI, he wasn't thinking in the American people's best interest. He was thinking of how to be politically pleasing to these Muslim interest groups. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.